Okay, so welcome to the MMG podcast. Today we have got Nate with us. Nate, how are you doing, mate? You good?
Hey, I'm Nate Hall with Stream Virtual Productions. We are a full service virtual and live streaming company. So we do a lot of hybrid events, virtual events, and anything with corporate communications. We help that behind the scenes with that type of stuff.
Got you. Cool. I mean, I've seen quite a lot on LinkedIn. That's kind of where this comes from, particularly during like COVID, at the early point there. I was like super active at that point, especially on like Facebook and LinkedIn. And yeah, I saw you guys and what you were doing at the time. Where is it that you're based?
We are based in Pennsylvania. We're in the suburbs of Philadelphia. So we're about 45 minutes out there. We're in an area where there's a lot of pharmaceutical clients. So we help them a lot with their productions.
Okay, got you. Um, Now, the idea of the podcast really is to talk about AV over IP, let other people
Mhm.
know that they're not alone and that they're not the only ones starting to implement this. Um, like I sort of say quite a lot, really. My socials, they look like AV over IP is already here, right? When
Yeah.
in reality, I think if we dig a bit more, it's more like it's coming, and the people should be ready for it. What are you seeing, like in the area around you? Like, are people already there, or are they just starting to get on board?
It really depends on who you talk to. Since I eat, breathe, and sleep this stuff, it seems like everybody knows it, and everybody knows what NDI is. Everybody knows what SRT is. Everybody knows how to insert something into a Teams meeting or a Zoom call. But the truth is, a lot of people, even people in IT, don't know this very well. So it is still relatively new. I mean, we all caught up during COVID, but other people are still lagging behind. So it's great to educate people and inform people how we can use these tools and how we can get them better and make them easier to use in the future.
So, what would you say is a good starting point then for people getting in to AV over IP? Like, where's a good place to start changing kit? Like, is it sort of to swap a sound desk or to change a machine for this? Where's a good in?
I mean, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. But a lot of people, if you're doing like live streaming or something like that, good lighting is always a good thing, but that's not quite IT. But it's also good to learn how to use NDI tools is a great starting point. Learn webcam input, learn full screen monitor, NDI monitor, that type of stuff. Download that tool set. It's free. You can mess around with it. You can download OBS and start messing around with SRT, anything like that, and just try it out using tools that are free or close to free, like Zoom, Teams, stuff like that, and you can start building on your skill set from there.
Cool. I mean, I think everyone now should be on a quest really to upskill. That's kind of how I see it, because they will get left behind, and I don't want to see that happen. I think,
Yeah,
and it's not even like a skill shortage. It's not that someone wouldn't be able to do it. It's just taking the time to know the little bit, the little bolt on, as
yeah.
it were. Um, for you, I've seen you doing all sorts of shows now. So, like, when you deploy a solution, is it AV over IP and that's it, or are you sort of like sitting in the middle ground at the moment? Where's things for you?
It really depends on the project, the client, and what we're doing. Some people don't want anything interacting with their network, so we have to do a lot of separation. Sometimes I have to bring a bonded internet box just because you're not allowed for security reasons. You can't connect to their network. So sometimes that is difficult. Other times we have to use like SDI or baseband on location just because we might be using like high quality cameras that don't have NDI or don't have SRT out. So it is a bit of a mix between baseband and IP right now, but there's other clients that we have that we install some PTZ optics cameras in their studio and we can control them with Hive and do everything remotely, or we can do similar stuff with some of the Bird Dog product line, stuff like that. So really depends on the client, but everything is moving towards IP. Even my super high-end Sony FR7 cinema cameras, they have
Hmm.
NDI implementation. So even the Canon cameras have NDI, the Panasonic do. So it's becoming a thing. It's really helpful for remote productions, but also for one-man band productions when it's just me, maybe me and an audio guy. It makes it easy for me to do everything. I don't need multiple video routers. I don't need all this stuff. So for one man band and remote productions, it is a great tool to have.
Have you got an event that you could sort of outline at all, like for the deployment, that you would say was like a larger setup normally,
Mhm.
but then like because of using AV over IP, you're able to sort of shrink it down?
Yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of global projects. I know we were talking about the pandemic, so we've done stuff where we had studios built in the UK, North Carolina, and Singapore for a big BNI event we did. And we were bringing in feeds through Zoom. We were bringing people in through SRT, and we were connecting the studios through SRT. And then we had a vMix call peer to peer
Hmm.
connection is another way, which is a very high quality connection, but it doesn't really require any skills. You don't have to open up ports on your router. You don't need to know anything about encoding settings. It just kind of works, and it works at a pretty good high quality. It's actually what we're using right now, so hopefully it looks good.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I
So,
think it's hard, isn't it? Like to know what to put out all the times with clients, because you were saying like a
yeah.
mixture there. Like actually, sometimes it is led by them as to
Mhm.
what they want, and then you have to kind of work to their choices. Um, I'm feeling like there's a big convergence now, though, between broadcast and production, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
ISE, things like that are just sort of like symptomatic of it. They're showing that's what's going on.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
even the high-end broadcasters are switching over to 2110. So, I mean, video over IP is becoming the norm, not the unique thing. So,
True, very true. So, like, where do you think it might head? Say, like, give it another 5 years.
I think video over IP generally, if it's for professionals like us or even big time broadcasters, it's going to become being used more and more and more. But just from the consumer, doing video over the internet live is going to be a skill set that everyone needs to know a little bit. So it's going to be a lot like when desktop publishing became a thing. Now everybody can do a little basic graphic design typing. They know how to print a document, and then the early 2000s, everybody learned how to do video on their phone so you could do social media posts and stuff like that. Live streaming and live video is going to become more common where it's a skill set you need to know. You need to be able to get into your Teams meeting and have your microphone and camera look right. You're going to have to know some basic skills. Maybe you need to know OBS if you want to stream to Twitch. So it's
Hmm.
becoming a communication thing, not only for big broadcasters or professional live streamers, it's also going to trickle down to Susie in accounting or something like that. So
Yeah, I suppose like internal comms, that kind of thing as well, isn't it?
yeah.
Um, I think it's quite a big asset in terms of like accessibility as well. So
Oh yeah.
when you're putting on like a virtual production, there's reasons, other than just because you wanted it to not be in a venue, right? Like it can be more a hybrid sort of affair where it's because
Oh
you're
yeah.
accommodating other people. Um, have you seen like any really cool ways that people have used new tech to help with either sustainability or accessibility around an event?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things that we do. You're not flying, spending millions of dollars flying everybody to Florida, wasting all that gas, burning all that stuff, having all that electric in a hotel room. That's one way that we help with sustainability. It is definitely using a lot less power, a lot less resources, a lot less gasoline. And for your thoughts about accessibility, a lot of the stuff we do, we can do live translations for people that want to do different languages. We can bring in ASL interpreters to help people
Hmm.
that have are slightly hearing impaired. Same thing, a lot of stuff like that. We do many different things that can help people that sometimes isn't as easy to do for just an in-person event. My company, we really like to focus on studio style shows. So they're not necessarily just bringing in people remote or just going to a ballroom. A lot of times they can come to my studio, or we could build a studio in their lunchroom or their conference room, or we can rent a studio somewhere else. A lot of times I'll travel to like Boston, Chicago, wherever, and we'll set up somebody else's studio and run our hybrid or virtual production from there. So it's more like a TV show, but it's the TV show that is interactive, but we can also add in a lot of those elements like ASL or closed captioning, stuff like that that could help anybody else be more accessible.
Got you. I mean, that's actually one of my favorite applications in terms of corporate, especially deploying studio kind of places and having them anchor the whole show, moving between different places in the
Yep.
company. Like it just totally, it's the perfect blend. Like using not just the technology from broadcast point of view,
Yeah.
but also the mentality. I really like that.
And it's funny.
I was
I know a lot about the tech side of things, but the one thing no one thinks about because they have their IT team doing their virtual events, they're not thinking about how to make it creative, how to make it interactive, how to make it something fun to watch. And at the end of the day, somebody has to watch these productions. So if it's extremely boring or you're not thinking about that part, that's a detriment to your audience and kind of defeats the whole purpose of figuring out all this crazy tech side, IT. Like, I kind of want to be the guy that, yeah, I can handle that side or I can hire the right people. But I want to make sure that the show looks and sounds good. It's interactive. It's fun to watch. It is something that keeps your attention. So that's not really a tech over IP thing, but it is very important that always gets lost in the translation. And I really try to push that as much as I can, just because
Mhm.
a lot of people don't think creatively. They're just trying to get it done.
I was chatting to a younger lad called Caleb recently, and we put
Mhm.
out the episode for that, so it's already out there. And he was full of ideas. That was the whole point, right? And he was
Yeah.
taking I think he felt enabled by the technology because there weren't as many boundaries around things, so he could think of new concepts and then more kind of find the solution based on that. In the same way as
Yeah.
like with a show or whatever, having the ultimate microphone on the bass drum isn't the winner. That's not the end point, but it is what
Yeah.
makes it happen and sound cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I come from a broadcast TV background, which is a good thing, but it's also slightly a bad thing because I'm kind of a little bit stuck in my broadcast. We got to do it this way, it's this way. But what I've been doing is branching out and seeing what the quote unquote kids are doing on Twitch and stuff, seeing how they're building communities, how they're doing interactivity. Sure, you
Hmm.
don't want your CEO probably using a robot voice changer in the middle of a show, but we can take some of those interactive ideas and how to make a show fun and interactive
Hmm.
and bring that into this type of show. So that's the one thing I'm really trying to look into. And yeah, it's not technically a tech side thing, but these people are just people sitting at home with a laptop and they're figuring out how to do a whole production. So that kind of leans into the whole this is going to be for everybody eventually. So
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things, if someone is just sort of planning the creative side, really is to think about the time that you're asking of someone, I think, as well, because if you're asking someone to sit still for 4 hours and watch
yeah,
endless content of someone just talking,
yeah,
probably not going
yeah,
to get the response you're after. But you can actually like whittle it down and just do, say, 20, 30 minutes of the in-person event and really hone it
yeah,
in for that moment to be that's the virtual bit.
yeah.
And then you get obviously like content and everything afterwards.
And I find that like a lot of the more educational sessions and stuff like that work better in virtual because when you're in the in-person event, you're really there for the networking, you're there for the after party events, you're there to shake hands, meet people and talk. Some of that stuff doesn't work as well with virtual, but the
Hmm.
things that do work well is education, pushing your message, getting people hyped, getting people excited about the future of whether it's a product launch or a town hall or anything like that, we can get people excited. And yeah, we're using IT stuff. We're making the image and video look good, and that's what we kind of like are experts at. But I just don't want to lose sight of it actually being watchable. So that's a big part of it for me.
This is like the talent pool, they're all sort of coming up together, isn't it? As well,
Oh
because you've got production, and yeah, that's a good thing, like the AV over IP and learning and going
yeah,
forwards. But you're right, there is another avenue that pushes alongside that for the
yeah,
creative part of the journey, because otherwise it's useless, right? Like, you
yeah.
can have
And
the
I try to
most
be
high
like the
tech.
middleman. I'm not like Elias. I'm not making my own NDI apps, but I use NDI all the time. Like I
Hmm.
understand it, I know how to use it, but I'm not a developer. I am am I a tech person? Yes, but I'm not in the trenches that deeply. I'm more about trying to make your productions looking good, sound good, and be entertaining. So I know enough to be dangerous, and I'm satisfied with that. It's already enough
That's cool.
troubleshooting.
See, we've ended up on a little bit of a parallel, really. So we still do produce, we still do production,
Mhm.
and we mainly solve problems for companies in a white label context, like for other production companies, if it's sort of a
Yep.
scale of a certain size. But then at the same time, we've ended up in a position where we're putting a product out, which has done like a soft launch. It'll be launch soon. By the time this podcast goes out, I probably can say, but if not, we'll edit it out, I suppose. But it'll be at ISE on NDI's stand and Netgear's stand, and then it's also going to be at IBC with Netgear. So
Nice.
hopefully that'll be interesting. But it's just like different journeys, I
Yeah.
suppose, really. One thing I was going to ask you as well, right? Wasn't just about what you thought about events and stuff.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more of like, where did you come from? How did you do what you did? So
Yeah.
at the moment, you're now with Stream Virtual. That's your company, right?
Yep. So I can give you a little background on me and just kind of how I got my start and how I ended up doing streaming.
Yeah, I think it's
So what?
interesting. It's
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I went to a vocational high school and we took a video production class, and they had a little TV studio and stuff like that that we got to mess around with. And back then, not a lot of schools had TV studios. Like only one in the whole state had one. So
Mhm.
now every school has one because it's cheap. But I got to learn TV production at a young age, and I really fell in love with it and got to do it. And I ended up getting an internship in my senior year at a local TV station, and that led to a full-time job doing like least access TV shows. So it'd be like church shows, stuff like Wayne's World, stuff like that. But it was very similar to how we do live streaming productions, where it's a very small crew that is controlling a lot of different things. You're running a switcher, you're running audio, you're doing graphics, you're doing playbacks, you're doing all that stuff. You have to have good timing. You got to be like an octopus and be able to control everything like that. So that's what I fell in love with, and I love doing productions where they're very high quality, but they're smaller, if that makes any sense. And that's how I got my start. Then I ended up staying with that company for a while. That was turned into Comcast eventually because it was a cable company. Went to film school, did all that stuff, ended up working for ABC News for about 15 years. And why I did that, I had this idea. It's like, we could do this on the internet. This would be awesome. So we got a TriCaster, we got a bunch of broadcast cameras, and we went around to all the AV companies, all the event companies are like, look, we can do live streaming. We can stream to Ustream and do it on this TriCaster thing, and it's going to be awesome. And everybody thought we were absolutely crazy, and it was the biggest failure ever. And yeah, it was no one, like everybody just thought we were crazy. So we're too early for that. So I
yeah. When was
kind
that
of
then?
stopped doing that. Ooh, probably somewhere in the mid 2000s. So the
Okay.
first
Yeah, yeah.
streaming stuff I did was like messing around with Real Player and stuff like that. Not very good. But yeah, when I really tried to get, I think it was probably like 2009, 2010 ish, something like that. Kept on with it. We kind of downgraded equipment because it's kind of hard to make TriCaster payments when you're not making any money. So we switched over to
Yeah.
OBS when that came out, and some Blackmagic stuff. And we just kept on pushing with it, and we did some corporate video production while I worked in the TV business as well. And just kept on pushing it. Eventually, it started leading to bigger and bigger stuff where we started doing like international women's conferences. We were streaming that. We were white labeling for multiple different AV companies, doing their live streaming because back then nobody knew how to do live streaming. So we were like the very few people that did it. And it started getting bigger and bigger, but I wasn't like hugely successful at it. I was just getting, a couple streams a month, but they were usually really high end ones. But then when the pandemic hit, it changed the whole story. So I went from not being so busy to never having a day off for like 3 years straight. So
That's it. I mean, that's kind of
and I
where
just yeah,
our world was as well. The COVID
yeah,
thing, that is where people then realized that they needed something that they didn't have. Um, and yeah, I mean, it just kicked off for our side as well. Um,
Yeah.
so where are you
And it's
at
the
now
same
then?
type of production. Like now I am with Stream Virtual Productions. This is my own company. Before I was with a different business partner with PBR, which we were focused a little bit more on regular video production, like shooting and editing, which I still love, but never really made any money doing that. So, but live streaming is very back to my basics where I'm doing these smaller but extremely high end TV shows where I have a little bit more control. Um, and right now, a lot of people are trying to drag me into the AV world of running like an E2 or some type of analog way switcher, stuff like that. That is not my focus. My focus is on high end live streaming and virtual events and hybrid events. So we get white label through big agencies, AV companies that can't handle it, or their client wants to do a little bit of higher end production. And then we also work with a lot of corporate companies, whether it be a big product launch for like a video game or something like that, or for a pharmaceutical thing. A lot of our work comes from the pharma industry, mostly
Mhm.
because they're the only ones that can afford to do a high end virtual event, where sometimes it can get pretty pricey once you factor in a lot of crew and days and travel. It does add
Yeah, yeah,
up.
yeah.
So,
That's cool though. It's a nice place to be in.
yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things I remember seeing that you was involved with, I'm not sure how you was involved, like the exact thing, was something to do with Mr. Beast. And I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
seeing a post, right, and it had like Atomos. I think Atomos loved it because there was, I don't know how many,
Okay.
like tons and tons of Atomos recorders in these racks. What did you do? What was that?
Actually, I'd give credit to Jimmy Stedman with Steady Streams. It's another business sort of like mine. He used to be the head of live streaming for Mr. Beast, so he did a lot of that
Got
stuff.
ya.
And I became friends with him over the pandemic, sharing ideas and stuff like that. They had this big show where they had record up to 300 cameras, and he was coming in. I think he left that role, but he still comes in as a consultant and as a production supervisor. So they
Hmm.
brought him in for this. I think it was 100 people. You have to stand in this cube or something like that. We needed to connect 300 cameras. So it was such a big project. It's like, hey, can you come in and help me on this? And I was like, sure. And I showed
Yeah.
up, and we were hooking up. I don't know. We hooked up like 20 Blackmagic video routers. We had like 300 Atmos recorders and stuff like that. So it was a pretty insane production. We had stuff going to video walls. We had like 3 vMix machines running. We had a bunch of Blackmagic switchers running. It was quite the setup, especially for a one-off. So that was a really awesome project to be involved in. And you should actually interview Jimmy Stedman as well, because he's very knowledgeable on this, and he was even more influential on that big project.
Okay, no, that sounds cool. Maybe we could
Yeah,
even give him a shout and just go all out on Mr. Beast. We'll have
yeah,
to see.
yeah. I don't know how much. I know they're a little bit strict on what you can and cannot share, just because he's such a big YouTuber. But
Yeah.
when Atmos
Well, we want
shared
all the
that
trade
post, I was
secrets.
like,
That's the thing.
yeah, yeah. Well, figuring out the algorithm, that's one thing. But Atomos shared that post, so I was like, I'm not gonna not share it. So I put it out there. So,
Yeah, no, like I say, I saw it and it was not subtle.
yeah,
There was like
yeah.
tons, absolutely tons.
So
Aside
yeah,
from like where you've sort of made your start and where you've ended
yeah.
up, have you got any advice for anyone that is coming into the industry now? The idea of this bit being mainly, maybe there's just one person listening that's thinking, how do I get in? And it gives
Yeah.
them something to explore, like a maybe.
It's such a weird industry because there's so many different entry points. Um, so you can come in, like you could start off just streaming on Twitch as a gamer playing video games, and you can learn OBS, you can learn some NDI, you can learn all that stuff, and you can do that all on your home PC. Or you can go the TV route. You can learn about cutting cameras, production, lighting, good audio. You can come in through the AV industry, which is probably the easiest way. You could start working in the warehouse, just wrapping cables, pushing boxes, and then slowly work your way into the video realm, which there's a lot of Zoom, there's a lot of team stuff happening. So as far as IT, you can even get in the AV, the installation route. Like that's huge there. The only thing I would caution in that one, you can really get sucked into just doing basic teams installs and stuff like that, where you're not really doing a production. Of course, you're going to be doing even more IT than the rest of the way. So there's a lot of different entry points, but it's like the one thing you really want to do is always say yes. That's what I say is like if you
Hmm.
have an opportunity, like I had a call randomly once, is like, hey, are you available Friday? I'm like, who's this? They're like, well, are you available Friday? Come to our studio? Like, I guess so. Well, can you come? What's your rate? And I was like, da, 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 da. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll show up. I show up and they're like, okay, you're directing the Oprah webcast. I'm like, what? And it was like Oprah Winfrey. And I was like, it was an amazing opportunity. And I did that for like a year or two, and it was amazing. I did that with another production company. So eh, once you start working in this world, people get to know you. Don't think of anybody as your competition. Like most of my work comes from other people like you or AV companies or agencies, and I just white label the service because
Hmm.
there's only so many people that know how to do this. And it actually makes it easier for me because I don't have to do all the selling and all that stuff. I can just do the awesome creative work. And I have a lot of fun doing this because it's like I'm doing TV shows, but they're interactive, and I get to buy a lot of high end gear and have a lot of cool toys. So
I suppose that's one of the things, isn't it? That's sort of like one of my
yeah,
secret things is that I do just like the tech, you know?
yeah,
I like to just fiddle things and work out where they're going and why this won't work and change something, you know,
yeah,
and create something different. And the other thing that stands out there is like the fact you say yes, you know?
yeah,
Um, I've known loads of techs along the way that essentially have become like really good, you know, whatever, like lighting, video, whatever. But when they started out, that was not what they were. You know, they
yeah,
might have been an audio engineer, but then they kept getting a phone call saying, "Can you do video?" And I mean, the answer was probably no to start with. But after so many
yeah,
asks, they were just like, "Well, okay, hang on, what is the switcher?" Right, okay, yeah, no, I'm ready. Let's
yeah.
do 4 channels, and then it just builds, doesn't it? You know.
Oh yeah. I mean, one of the top streaming guys in my area started off as an audio tech years ago, and he just kept on saying yes till now. He's like the expert on all IT and IP, and I have to call him and be like, what setting what port do I open? So yeah, it's very funny, this business that you can there's a lot of room to grow, and
Hmm.
it is a new business. There's a lot of tools that are making it easier and easier. Um, and the people that are going to do the cheap and free stuff, I wouldn't worry about them because there's still always going to be a market for professionals to take this. And as we learned in the pandemic, most people don't know how to use a computer. Most people have horrible internet. So
Hmm.
I wouldn't be worried about like not being okay being the expert on something like this because it's only going to get bigger. So I would
Yeah,
totally
no,
go in all in on this. So
it's definitely on its way up. Like I say,
yeah,
I see it all day, every day, and that sort of seems the norm from my
yeah,
world. But you know, then we go out and we dig around, and we'll be doing an event, and there'll be various technicians or another company, and they'll be sort of talking about how
yeah,
they're still rolling out, you know, their pulse switcher or whatever it is, just a
yeah,
little thing,
yeah, yeah.
and you're like, oh, okay, guys, cool. But it's sort of
Yeah,
now at a
that's
point where I
the
just
one
think,
thing about the pandemic was helpful for because like now everybody knows what streaming is. Everybody knows what doing some basic video over IP is. But at the same time, now AV companies are trying to do this on their own, and they're just taking one camera and shoving it into a low resolution Zoom call and calling it a live stream. And it's like that's not quite what we do. And I'll even get calls to do that for them, and it's
yeah.
like I could do a lot more with just my laptop. You sure you don't want me to do this? And they're like, oh no, this is it. And it's like, someone's got to watch it. Comes back to my whole thing. Somebody has to watch this. If it's just a wide shot of a grainy stage with bad lighting, I mean,
Yeah, then
even if
they're
the
not gonna.
content's
That's
really
just
interesting, if
CCTV,
it's
really, isn't it? That's
yeah,
yeah,
it's
different
bad.
vibe.
Yeah. So
Um,
so it's good and bad. Now everybody knows this industry, but also everybody knows this industry. So at least in our circles. So
yeah, yeah, for sure, for
yeah.
sure. Um, I think that's kind of like the general vibe of what I was going to go over. Is there anything else that you think that is like super relevant about the whole sort of change of what's going on with broadcast and production, or got any insight there?
Um, I think we're on the verge of streaming media and video over IP becoming not only something that us professionals are going to have to deal with, it's going to be something that's integral for anybody working in a professional business. So it's going to be like the new desktop publishing. It's going to be like shooting those social media posts on your iPhone. It's going to
Mm.
become something that where you don't have to be the absolute expert at it, but everybody's gonna have to know a little bit of it and know enough to be dangerous. And if you want to become one of the experts at this stuff, just open up OBS, download it for free. Open up, start trying to feed stuff into Teams, mess around with streaming to YouTube. All the skills that you need that that you need for doing the higher end stuff are the exact same as the cheap and free stuff. So go ahead and try it out, experiment with it, and see where you can get and start networking with people like us and figure out where you can go from there.
Where can people find you? What's the easy way? So if they're
The
watching
easiest
and want to
way,
catch up.
you could check out my website, which is streamvirtual.com, or you could shoot us an email at info@streamvirtual, or you could search for me on LinkedIn is probably the best place. Me personal, I think my LinkedIn is Nate Hall Producer, or you could look for my company on LinkedIn, which is Stream Virtual.